Nothing we say is investment advice. Please pause on all 3 pages of this disclaimer and read it.
Greetings, Algo artisans. It's Cowboy, and I am back. Took about a week off or so to handle some personal matters. I tend not to take too much of a vacation. I think I took a week off like last year, but this is the time to do it if you're a trader. Usually, this year I'm not so sure. But the market was pretty choppy the last few days. But honestly, last week was super exciting. We had some news come out. Particularly the FOMC and the Japanese yen data. So we'll jump into that. But first, take a look in the description. There is a free algo. Click on that link. You will watch me build an algo. And it's a pretty simple algo. I build it pretty quickly. You do need to optimize the algo before you use it. Make sure you talk to us about how to do that. Algofactory.tech. Learn to trade like a hedge fund pro. In the meantime, the video also shows you how the professional traders will link their algo to their broker so it can trade for them when they're not even sitting at the computer. Might be golfing, sleeping, what have you. So check that out. Also, like and subscribe does us a helping hand, does us a big favor doing that. All right. So yesterday I put out the weekly update. And by the way, if you get that algo video, you'll get the weekly updates as well. And I did that right here. Where that line is on the screen, this is the NASDAQ, and the NASDAQ is continuing to move up as I predicted. It might even move up a little more quickly than I predicted. So if the open today is strong, you might see something like this. It might pop above this area. Maybe, maybe not, right? And if you get that pop above, we might see that long opportunity that I called out yesterday on the show. And again, we don't give investment advice here. This is just a possible long that I might take. But if that were to happen, instead of it being over here, it simply would be here, right? So we don't know if this is going to break today. If the price does reject at this level, then you would probably have some kind of a short play where it happens sooner rather than later, right? So it all depends on when the price is going to hit those levels that I'm looking at, and also if it hits those levels, although it looks pretty likely we are going to see price hit this key level right here. It's a local structural level sitting right here at this blue line, and that's 29,348. So as it stands right now, though, the market is looking pretty bullish. I think we're looking more likely at a breakout to the upside than a rejection to the downside. So I would be looking more to get that long right there and pay attention to it that way. So we'll see. I'll keep an eye on it, and I may or may not take that. It just all depends on what the algos say at the time, right? And I tend to scalp this more than anything else. But the real question is, will this continue up, right? And I'm going to move to a different NASDAQ chart here. And we're going to back out, and we're going to take a look at a higher time frame that has a little bit more data. And I can tell you that, look, high time frame, this thing is always going to appear to be bullish just because of it being the NASDAQ and having gone up for so long. But what we really want to pay attention to here is I'm actually going to, this is the daily chart. I'm going to back out to the weekly chart. We're going to look at this very high time frame. We're going to study what this usually does. I know I've talked about this before, but if you look at this going back to just maybe 3-4 years, and you can even study this going back further, even if we go back like 10 years, price tends, with a little bit of an exception in the 2020 COVID crash, that was a unique event. But what price tends to do is come to prior highs and then bounce, right? So for example, you had a high here back in 2018, and COVID pushed it a little bit deeper, but it did continue up after that. And then the COVID high, which was right here, obviously in before the crash in 2020, price made its way back down almost to that high and then kept going, right? Well, the next high we saw was right here, and this was in 2022, just before the Ukraine offensive began. The Russian, you could call it invasion, special operation, depends on how you see the world. But you'll notice that price, this was the high, price came down to touch that prior high, and then went all the way up here, came back down to touch the pre-special operation high, right? And then you have a similar scenario where you have a high in December of 24, and then again in February 25. And there was a move down, and they call it the tariff tantrum, probably also had to do with DeepSeek and a few other things, but price came back up and almost touched that high right here. So the NASDAQ likes to almost touch highs. And so we have to ask ourselves, is this high that we saw, and this was the all-time high that happened in October of 25, and then a retest in January of 2026, the price came up, made new highs just last month, in June actually, and then almost touched those highs. So you have to ask ourselves, is this going to be the low, or is price going to go down a little bit lower? Is price going to come back up and retest these highs up here? Let's fix this real quick. Give me one moment. Oh boy, there we are. So is price going to retest these highs? It may. Price did fall about 17% off the top. And as of now, the algos are a bit bullish. So we could see a retest of the highs or not. So now that we have kind of a thesis, there are two things price could do. Well, there are many things price could do, but there are two main things that I am looking at, okay? And the main question is whether or not this low is going to be the low, right? The local low that we see, this summer, let's say, right? Because summertime, sell in May and go away. Usually you see lows in the summertime. So let's zoom in a little bit to the daily. We'll do a little bit of measurement here. And then if we have some time, we will take a brief look at Bitcoin. So price fell about 12% off the highs, right? And that's remarkable. That's a strong fall. It's a big move down. And now that it has fallen that 12%, it got caught and moved up, now 7%. So roughly half of that move, more than that, has been recovered, right? So big move down last week and in prior weeks, and now you have this. Now the question is whether or not this move we see now can be sustained, whether or not it's going to grind its way back up. And usually these recoveries are pretty stiff. You get kind of a choppy move down like this. This is kind of typical, choppy move down, and then boom, you get a V-shaped sort of recovery. And the question is whether or not that will happen like this, and maybe even beyond, possibly beyond, or not. Now, the way I had the algos and the way that I was looking at the market, I see, and I still see, two possibilities. We either see that recovery or we see this continue to head down, grab those highs, bottom crawl just a little bit, and possibly start to recover before the midterms. So I do think the current regime will hold things in place. Part of the big news that has allowed this market to sort of come back the way it has is the Japanese yen deal that was made. And I've talked about this in the newsletters. I'm not going to explain it here. We don't have the time for it. But long story short, if the Bank of Japan hikes their rate in order to save their economy, in order to protect their currency, then that will cause a major problem for the world markets because the Japanese yen is basically the world's liquidity solution. Morning, Larry. So that said, if that happens, that can be trouble. And this may have been staved off by the US agreeing to buy the yen to support it and to keep its value high. And that was a big announcement last week. And ever since that announcement, you're seeing this major move up. So we really don't understand just yet how this is going to go. We're just going to have to let the data come in. Quick look at Bitcoin before we go to the private lab. You would think that Bitcoin would move very high based on this information. It is inching up. However, it's not very exciting, right? Now, my prediction from yesterday has it grinding up, and grinding up it is. In fact, maybe even a little bit more quickly than I thought it would. So there you go, right? You're seeing it just slowly grind. Just nothing exciting. And that is because Bitcoin is probably at the beginning, or the middle, I should say, of its bear market move. And if Bitcoin does what it's always done, it's going to go down below 30,000 by November or October. Now, of course, this is a thesis based on very few data points. So it's not a strong thesis, but it's the only data we have besides, theoretical data or unquantifiable, relatively unquantifiable data. Because I've heard people say it for 2 or 3 cycles now. Oh, the institutional money's in. It's not gonna fall like it used to. I've heard it all before. The only thing I can rely on is the data. Now, if price doesn't go that low, or if the algos signal a kind of a reversal that happens higher, then so be it. But until that time, I have the data on which I can rely, which is the prior cycles where you see a 75 to 85% move down after the high. And it takes about 400 days, which puts price between 25 and 30,000 in October or November. And until I see something different, then that will be the thesis. And certainly it's a lot lower than it was at the high. So having predicted a high between 120 and 140,000, like I did for 2 years before that high happened, I am happy with that prediction being correct. And we're going to see, I'm certainly in great shape, not having bought that high above 120, right? And a lot of people exited around that time. And a lot of those people just happen to be the people who are part of Algo Factory or listening to what we do. And therefore, we're a great group of guys to listen to. Let's just leave it at that. We don't give investment advice, but we chart things really accurately. So thanks for watching. If you have anything you want to see in particular, leave a comment in the comment section or just come in live and ask for it. And we will be back. That's 8:30 a.m. EST, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And we also will do custom charting. So if you come into the show, say, hey, I want to see, this stock, that stock, these bonds, whatever, as long as it's not some dumb like meme coin or something, I'm happy to chart it. Okay.